Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. Want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out for the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a huge lineup of news to brief you all on today. Today's date is August 27th, 2025, and it's Wednesday. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and I hope you're all having an awesome day today. We have so much news to get into with this war update, so let's go ahead and get right into this. We'll start out with a massive story out of Russia's Ryazan region as overnight we had a main pipeline that connects from the Ryazan region over to Moscow, which are right next to each other, suffering a major explosion. So we're going to talk about this new report here on your screen. Russia's main oil pipeline from Ryazan region to Moscow explodes. As a result of the powerful explosion, the transportation of petroleum products to Moscow via the pipeline has been suspended indefinitely. This was according to a source from Ukraine's HUR. Now, the HUR, if you're not familiar with that, that is Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, which is like their intelligence department. And this is what they're reporting today. There was a massive explosion on this pipeline. And this is going to be huge, guys, because Moscow is the most populated area inside of Russia. That's their capital. And this is going to stop a lot of oil flows and fuel flows going into Moscow. So we already know that right now inside of Russia, numerous regions, especially in Russia's far east, experiencing lots of fuel shortages. I have more reports today coming out from even occupied areas of Ukraine. New areas are experiencing fuel shortages even further. So this fuel crisis and shortage inside Russia and occupied areas of Ukraine is continuing to spiral out of control. This is only going to make things worse. We're still waiting to hear more details on this explosion here, what caused it, but I'm going to share some information with you guys in just a moment. We also have a story out of Bild magazine today. This is out of Germany. They're reporting that Russia's summer offensive has failed. You guys can let me know if you think that is the case. In my opinion, I think it has. We've been hearing for months now that the Russians were launching new offensives, and for the most part, across the front line, Russia's not making a whole lot of significant gains, so we'll talk about that. Also, Ukrainian drones struck at least one defense plant in Rostov-on-Don in the Rostov region overnight. Multiple explosions reported in Rostov region as well. We'll talk about that. I've got numerous videos coming out from Rostov overnight, which is right next door to Ukraine's like Donetsk region and Luhansk regions. Okay, so lots of news to cover. Let's go ahead and get right into this. So we're going to jump into a mainstream news report just for a moment because it's got really good information regarding this pipeline explosion. So this is on Ukrainska Pravda 25. It says powerful explosion on Ryazan Moscow main oil pipeline according to sources. This coming out today, August 27, 2025. And it says here the Ryazan Moscow main oil pipeline in Ryazan Oblast suffered a powerful explosion on August 26, disrupting the transport of petroleum products to Moscow. Ukrainska Pravda sources in Defense Intelligence of Ukraine. Okay, so you can see their intelligence service was reporting this today. That's where this information came from, their HUR. The pipeline is one of the main sources of petroleum product supplies to Moscow, a source told Ukrainska Pravda. A large fire broke out after reports appeared in Ryazan local social media groups about a loud explosion on a section of the main oil pipeline. Within a few hours, the authorities had brought emergency service vehicles to the scene. Local residents say that in the area of the settlement of Bozatkovo, if I'm saying that right, in the Zelezhnodorozhny district, that's a long name, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, of the city of Ryazan, law enforcement and repair crews are present and are attempting to tackle the consequences of the explosion and fire. Since 2018, this trunk line has been repurposed for the supply of petrol by Transneft, which supplies Russian forces. DIU reported that as a result of the incident, the transportation of petroleum products to Moscow has been disrupted for an indefinite period. Okay, so another major pipeline in Russia going down. I mean, there's been numerous explosions on pipelines we've reported. Sometimes, like what we're seeing today, we don't know what caused the explosion. Was it Ukraine's HUR, their intelligence directorate that carried out this attack? Maybe they planted explosives on this pipeline or something like that. Was it maybe a drone attack? We don't really know yet. All we know is it was some sort of explosion on this pipeline. And we've been talking a lot about the Druzhba oil pipeline as well. That thing has been shut down for about a day or two after Ukraine, for over a week now, has been striking multiple pumping stations connected to the Druzhba oil pipeline, which allows oil flows out of Russia to go even to the Ust-Luga port, which was attacked over the weekend by drones up near St. Petersburg, and also allowing oil flows to go into Belarus and other countries in Europe like Hungary, Slovakia. So, huge mess inside of Russia right now with these oil pipelines and fuel shortages. Let's talk more about this. Let's hop on over to X now. With War Translate, it says a major oil pipeline in Russia, one of the key suppliers of petroleum products to Moscow, has exploded. According to media reports, the incident involves the Ryazan Moscow pipeline, which has been supplying fuel since 2018, including to the occupying army. Following the explosion and a massive fire, fuel deliveries to Moscow have been suspended indefinitely. So here's another photo of an explosion on this pipeline. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get any clear photos yet or videos to show like an actual fire that's breaking out, showing this pipeline actually burning. This is the most we were able to obtain was this photo here, and also the photo that we had for you guys on the waiting screen that was also on that article, showing the initial explosion, and then we've got what looks like a major fire here that broke out, and could be that pipeline that is burning. So we're waiting for more information on this. Was this a targeted attack from Ukraine's HUR? Did they carry out a strike here, some sort of sabotage event? Or maybe was this a drone that struck this pipeline? We're not really sure yet, but again, major oil flows and fuel going to be stopped going over to Moscow. And again, Moscow not being affected too much by these fuel shortages right now, but it looks like they're going to be next. And Ukraine is just really coordinating a lot of these strikes on these oil refineries, shutting down fuel moving across the country. All these fuel cars on these trains are being destroyed. We've been reporting a lot of that. We have another train today in just a moment. I'll show you guys that has been destroyed as well. So let's move on to another one now from next up. Russia's summer offensive in Ukraine collapsed with a loud crash. Most of Putin's goals fizzled out. Build military analyst Julian Ropke writes, judge for yourself. Pokrovsk was supposed to fall, but after a brief breakthrough in August, Russian troops were either killed or captured within 3 weeks. The plan for a 600-kilometer buffer zone in Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv regions has failed. Moscow controls less than 70 kilometers along the border. In the south, Kherson and Zaporizhia, the front lines haven't moved. In 3 months, Russia gained just 1,800 square kilometers, about 0.3% of Ukraine's territory, far from what Putin dreamed of. Meanwhile, Ukraine keeps striking deep into Russia, knocking out 17% of refinery capacity. Fuel is vanishing and prices are soaring. Soon they'll be riding horse carts. So very true, guys. I mean, I'd have to agree with a good majority of what they're talking about here. I mean, Russia is not achieving a lot of their goals. We did talk about this whole buffer zone thing that Russia was trying to achieve in the Sumy, Kharkiv, and Chernihiv regions to prevent a lot of strikes on their territory. That has not been achieved at all. The Russians have not been able to take over Pokrovsk in the southeastern side of Ukraine in the Donetsk region. They've been getting close to it, but anytime they have started to move into the town, we've heard many times that the Russians are being eliminated down there. So, you know, Russia did make a breakthrough just about 2 weeks ago in the Donetsk region. We heard that was completely shut down, severed in half, and destroyed. Russia is not doing well in this war, yet at the same time, Vladimir Putin wants to continue the fighting inside of Ukraine. Meanwhile, they're losing lots of troops on the front line, and the refineries and oil supplies in Russia are being destroyed by Ukrainian drones. So insane that Vladimir Putin is just allowing the destruction of Russia while at the same time for very minuscule gains inside of Ukraine. Now from Drone Bomber. Approximate flight routes of our UAVs. Red arrow indicates directions of strike UAVs. Blue arrow indicates directions of jet-powered UAVs. All route information is based on Russian sources. So here's our map today, showing the drones entering into Russian territory. You can see lots of drones flying into Russia once again. So up here in the Ryazan and Moscow Oblast, this is where that pipeline was at. You can see there was drones heading up this direction. So maybe it was a drone attack on that pipeline. Not really sure yet. But for the most part, what we have today down here in Rostov-on-Don, you can see a lot of drones crossing right over Rostov-on-Don. That's where a lot of the explosions were taking place. I think also in Taganrog as well. That's going to be right in this area also where these drones are heading. That's another city inside the Rostov region that was coming under attack. Actually, could be Krasnodar, excuse me. This is an area that the Russians have like a defense plant that they use to produce and repair aircraft for the Russian military. There's also a military airfield down there as well near Taganrog. So I believe there was drones trying to attack that area, but we could not confirm that. But aside from that, Rostov-on-Don was the primary target overnight. We have defense plants that have been hit. You can see some drones heading up on this direction towards Saratov as well, where we have an oil refinery over there, but didn't have any reports of oil refineries being attacked overnight. So now let's move on to Astra, Russian defense plant Granite, hit by drones in Rostov-on-Don. Fire reported at the site, according to Astra sources. On the evening of August 26, drones attacked not only central Rostov, but also the Pervomaisky district. Astra found out, according to sources in the region's emergency services, one drone crashed into the territory of the private defense plant Granite in the Chklovsky neighborhood. A fire broke out but was quickly extinguished. Windows were shattered in one of the plant's buildings. Other damage remains unclear. No casualties were reported. Early in the morning of August 27th, local residents wrote in the community chats that the area around Granite had been cordoned off with both entry and transit closed. Residents also reported smoke and explosions near Oseni Park, located next to the plant during the night. PJSC Granite is a private defense plant in Rostov-on-Don. Open sources say the facility produces electronic vacuum tubes and other vacuum devices. Its products are used in aviation and air defense systems. You can see why Ukraine would go after this plant. In May 2024, local media reported that an investor had postponed registering a technology park at the Granite plant in Rostov, where 1.5 billion rubles were planned to be invested. The project was put on hold indefinitely due to the facility's production workload. Photo of an archive image of the Granite plant RO today. Okay, so this is allegedly a picture of this plant, or maybe the entrance to the office of this plant that came under attack. And again, this is producing vacuum devices, vacuum tubes that are used in aviation and air defense systems for the Russian military, and allegedly came under attack according to Astra. And Astra is a very reliable source out of Russia. This is a Russian Telegram channel, but they're also on X as well. So giving us some information today, we did have a hit on this Granite plant in Rostov-on-Don. Now here's a video from Null Reports. Rostov, Russia. Fires reported after an alleged drone attack. Unclear whether it was caused by an interceptor or a direct hit. Previously, there was UAV activity reported near Taganrog. So you can see talking about Taganrog here, where we have that military airfield and also that production plant for Russia's aviation industry. Could have been attacked overnight, but was not able to confirm. This is video footage coming out of Rostov-on-Don overnight. Something got hit here and caught on fire. You can see there's also police that have responded to that strike. Now for Bliskovka, explosions were heard over Rostov-on-Don, Russia, with smoke visible in the sky. Earlier, a drone attack alert had been declared in the region. Here's another video coming out. Something caught on fire here. This almost looks like it could be like an oil depot or something. I'm not sure exactly what it was that got hit there, but something is burning very heavily there after Ukrainian drone attacks. So there was multiple explosions going off inside of Rostov-on-Don, several sites being hit, and so far all we've been able to confirm is just one defense plant that for sure was hit overnight. Now for Max 25, Rostov, the moment of strike. Here's video footage capturing what looks like a drone slamming into something. You're going to be able to see a flash and then a loud explosion. Some residents in Rostov-on-Don captured this. Take a look.
Может, это мотоцикл?
Нет. Это не мотоцикл. Мотоцикл.
Нет!
Блядь.
Уебать!
Сука!
Пидорасы, нахуй!
Это очень страшно. Давай уйдем, пожалуйста, в подвал, Дима,
А
пожалуйста.
ну нахуй!
All right, so Rostov-on-Don is a very large city in the Rostov region, just over the border from Ukraine's Donetsk Oblast and also Luhansk regions. So yeah, massive explosion over here. Not sure what was being hit. Could have been that defense plant, but you can see Ukraine was going after a lot of targets down here. Many different explosions in Rostov-on-Don. Here's more images now from Max 25, more from Rostov. So here's another picture of probably one of those fires that we were looking at. It could be a different angle here. Somebody was able to capture this fire burning, so something definitely caught on fire, was burning right there. And there was even a top of a residential building that caught fire as well. This could have been a drone maybe that just crashed after it was being shot down, maybe suppressed by electronic warfare. But we did have an explosion on top of a residential building that caught fire. You can see here on the top of that. Now let's move on to Null Reports. Overnight in Komi Republic, Partisans torched a Russian railway's locomotive at the Syktyvkar. Sorry, guys. Hard to pronounce that one as well. This was a train depot. It says they smashed the window of the TEP 70 number 455 and threw in a Molotov cocktail. So we had partisans over here helping out Ukraine, destroying another Russian locomotive. I mean, how many of these locomotives and trains have we seen derail inside of Russia over the last year, being destroyed? I don't know how many of these that we've reported of locomotives being set on fire inside of Russia. I mean, I'm surprised they even have any trains left to use, and this is also contributing to the fuel shortages because a lot of these trains are being used to transport fuel, and with these fuel cars, a lot of these are being destroyed in the Rostov region as well by Ukrainian drones. This is all contributing to the collapse of logistics for the Russian military, not only for their military, but even for the civilian sector as well. Imagine the delays just getting supplies to businesses and everything like that. This is affecting Russia all around, not just to do with the military, but their economy as well. Now from Ukrainian Review, Sumy, Kherson, and Poltava were under massive drone strikes at night. Infrastructure facilities were damaged in Sumy region. All water utility facilities in the city are without power. Electricity is partially absent and only buses provide traffic. In Poltava region, an energy company, administrative building, transport, and equipment were damaged. And people were also left without electricity after the strikes. In Kherson, Russians this morning killed one woman and injured two others. Horrible news, guys. Lots of strikes happening inside of Ukraine overnight. I think we had somewhere around 95 or so drones going into Ukrainian territory. Here's more destruction. Looks like somebody's home or business here that was destroyed in Russian strikes overnight. You can see multiple regions were attacked. Sumy, Kherson, and Poltava, some of the major targets overnight from this Russian attack. Now from Bliskovka and Donetsk region, Russia destroyed DTEK's coal enrichment plant as a result of the attack. The company, which provided coal to Ukrainian thermal power generation, is completely paralyzed and its equipment is unusable. The staff was not injured. The fire was extinguished by rescuers. Sad news to report right here, guys. We have a major coal enrichment plant owned by the company DTEK. We've talked about them before. There was 6 to 8 months ago, I want to say, late last year, they were reporting up to like 80% of their facilities as a major energy company in Ukraine, stating that, a lot of their facilities have been destroyed, 80% or more. It's taken them a lot of time to repair all these different energy facilities. They also have a coal enrichment plant here that was struck. This is allegedly a photo coming out showing a major fireball. We did hear yesterday that the Russians struck some certain types of coal mining areas inside of the Donetsk region. There was a bunch of coal miners, like 150 of them or so, that were trapped. Power was cut to that area as well. And Russia's just really carrying out heavy attacks onto Ukraine's energy infrastructure as well, on top of Ukraine doing the same thing. Now we got a video here from Military News UA. Donald Trump said that the United States could impose sanctions and duties for refusing to settle not only against Russia, but also against Ukraine. Yeah, you heard that right. So Trump is going to state here that he's open to putting sanctions or tariffs, whatever economic pressure is needed, not only onto Russia, but Ukraine as well. See this.
If I can save that by doing sanctions or by just being me, or by using a very strong tariff system that's very costly to Russia or Ukraine or whoever we have, if I can save that.
So there you go. He said whether on Russia or Ukraine, whichever one they have to. So looks like the Trump administration is open to hitting Ukraine as well with tariffs or sanctions. Now, let me know if you agree with that. Should Ukraine be hit with sanctions when at the same time for months now, Ukraine has been calling for a 30-day unconditional ceasefire with Russia, and Russia has never agreed to that. Why should that have anything to do with Ukraine? You guys can let me know, but that's what Trump stated just in the last 24 hours. Now, Military News UA, Trump calls on EU to send troops to Ukraine, but Europeans are against it, according to Wall Street Journal. 56% of Germans and 60% of Poles are against the deployment of troops. France's support depends on the conclusion of a peace agreement. Previously, there were statements that Britain, France, Finland, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia are ready to join the peacekeeping mission. Germany, Poland, Italy, Spain, Slovakia, Hungary said that they do not plan to send troops. Here's a report today. Trump wants European troops in Ukraine. Europe's voters aren't convinced. So it looks like, the civilians of many of these countries in Europe are not okay with having their troops sent over to Ukraine. It's a very big controversial thing right now. They're trying to figure out whether to do this or not. Some countries are open to it. Just like yesterday, I reported to you guys, Belgium just announced they're open to sending their troops. We know Lithuania, some of the Baltic nations, they are open to doing this. Poland is not. Germany is kind of like 50-50 right now. We don't know what they're going to do. Same with the UK. The UK has been coming out sometimes saying they're willing to do it. Then they say they're not. Same thing with France. So I don't know what's going to happen here with troops going into Ukraine. But we talked a little bit yesterday about some of the strategies they might use. Where some of these Western troops, if they do get deployed into Ukraine, they're probably going to be staying more on the western side of Ukraine, closer to the Polish border. And we'll have to see how that's going to work out. But looks like there is a lot of pushback on peacekeeping troops in Ukraine. Now, Max 25, security guarantees for Ukraine based on the model of Article 5 of the NATO Charter are the main mechanism being considered by Western allies. This was stated today by Giorgia Meloni. This is her right here, the Prime Minister of Italy. So we have heard numerous times she has advocated the calls to allow Ukraine to have some type of Article 5 style protection without getting Ukraine into NATO. Apparently, NATO can arrange something like that. Not sure if that's going to be the thing, but she is stating today that that is the main mechanism being considered by Western allies. So isn't that interesting? Could we possibly see Ukraine getting some form of Article 5 protection, even though they are not admitted into NATO? Let me know how you feel on that one. Now, Max 25 again, Trump imposed a 50% tariff on Indian goods to punish the country for buying Russian oil, according to Bloomberg. The new tariffs will hit more than 55% of goods shipped to the U.S. and hurt labor-intensive industries like textiles and jewelry the most, while key exports, like electronics and pharmaceuticals, are exempt. Here's the article today from Bloomberg. Trump slaps India with 50% tariffs, upending ties with Modi. There was a report yesterday that Narendra Modi apparently refused 4 different times to answer a phone call from Trump. Trump's been trying to call him. That's the Prime Minister of India, by the way, if you didn't know that. And apparently he has not been answering his phone whenever Trump calls. He doesn't want to speak to Trump at all due to these tariffs. And we know that Trump is slapping these tariffs onto India for purchasing Russian oil and also Russian military equipment, trying to put pressure on them to stop them from purchasing Russian oil. But so far, they have not done that. They have started to increase purchases of Russian oil, actually, and are not going to be backing down in any way. So today is when these 50% tariffs have gone into effect, okay? So looks like there's going to be more effects to India's economy, and also the U.S. economy will be impacted by this as well. So now moving on to Visioner. It says big negotiations on the accession of Moldova and Ukraine to the EU may begin in the coming days or weeks, according to Politico. It is noted that Trump managed to persuade Orban to lift his veto on Ukraine's accession to the bloc. Now, this is probably one of the biggest stories today. Now, don't get too excited about this until we actually see something happen. But could Ukraine and Moldova possibly get into the EU very soon? Could accession talks begin literally in the coming days or weeks? That's apparently what Politico reported today. And it says here that Trump was able to persuade Orban, that's Viktor Orban, the Hungarian prime minister, to lift his block, or his veto, on Ukraine's accession into the EU. Okay, so that's very big, because that's something we did hear over the last couple of days as well, that Trump apparently made a phone call to Viktor Orban, persuading him to lift his veto, blocking Ukraine's access into the EU. And that's also why around the same time we started seeing Ukraine striking the Druzhba oil pipeline pumping stations, which stopped a lot of oil flows into Hungary. So was that Ukraine doing that on purpose to put pressure onto Viktor Orban to lift his veto? Maybe it was, but regardless, the Druzhba oil pipeline helps out the Russian military, which is why Ukraine's trying to destroy it. So, this is very big, guys. We could possibly see Ukraine getting into the EU here very soon, and I think that's going to be a big part of ending this war as well. Ukraine does want to get into the EU. We know they want to get into NATO also. That one's going to be a big hurdle, but the EU is definitely looking like it's going to be coming first. Now from NOLA Reports, Zelensky says Russia continues to send negative signals about talks while strikes on our cities and villages persist. Every day brings new victims. Only strong pressure will make Russia respond. We count on it. Real diplomacy requires steps from Moscow, nothing less. Here's a statement from Zelensky today, just commenting on this war and saying that Russia's still sending negative signals about talks, that they're not really open to holding this meeting with Putin and Zelensky. We still have not heard anything on this. It's been like, what, about a week or so now, or more than a week, since we were hearing from Trump that they were going to be setting up a meeting between Zelensky and Putin. So it still looks like that's not happening. I do have some information out of the Kremlin. I'll show you guys that here in just a moment. Now from Ukrainian Review, Ukraine's top officials, Yermak and Umerov, will visit the U.S. this week to meet Trump's envoy, Witkoff, for talks on possible security guarantees and a future Zelensky-Putin meeting, according to Bloomberg. Okay, so this is them two right here. We've got Andriy Yermak, the head of the presidential office out of Ukraine. Then we've got also Rustem Umerov. He's going to be, or both of these guys are going to be showing up, inside of Washington coming up this week. Okay, so they're going to be meeting with Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, for talks on security guarantees for Ukraine and also discussing a potential meeting between Zelensky and Putin in the future. So we'll see how that's going to go. So we'll expect to hear some word on this meeting coming up this week. Now from Savchenko, Volodymyr, Russia to increase crude oil exports by 200,000 barrels per day in August due to Ukrainian strikes on refineries, according to Reuters. Such a decision will affect the western Russian ports of Primorsk, Novorossiysk, and Ust-Luga. Instead of the planned 1.8 million barrels per day, it will reach 2 million. In August, Ukrainian troops repeatedly struck the Druzhba pipeline and the Uneka pumping station in the Bryansk region, which further limited Russia's export capabilities. So yeah, I wonder if that's the reason why they're doing this, or increasing their crude oil exports by 200,000 barrels per day in August. And just over the last week, we've been seeing that the Druzhba oil pipeline is shut down. So I would assume that because those oil exports coming out of that pipeline are halted right now, possibly for 5 days, a week, maybe longer, that's going to force Russia to have to export oil out of some of their ports using ships to get them over to the countries that need them. So that's probably why Russia's doing that. So that's more signs here showing that Russia's oil industry is collapsing and suffering heavily right now due to all these strikes from Ukraine. Now, Jay in Kiev, Russia's gasoline crisis continues with some Russian-occupied areas of Ukraine now completely out of fuel. This is Berdyansk, okay, guys? This is down in the Zaporizhzhia region, far southern side of Ukraine, right on the coastline of the Black Sea. And we have another report here to show you that 95 octane gasoline completely out, okay? So it's even affecting parts of Zaporizhzhia region now. We already know about Crimea. There was also a report today out of the Donetsk region. I think it was in Makivka. We talked about Makivka yesterday. That's a city right next to the city of Donetsk, basically connected to Donetsk, in the Donetsk Oblast down in southeastern Ukraine, also being affected. They actually had only one type of octane of fuel that was available at one of those gas stations over there. So lots of different gas stations running out of fuel. You can see here, they only have 92 octane here, probably some diesel gas that's available. But aside from that, some of these major gasolines, octanes that are being used by just ordinary citizens, they can't receive any gas at some of these gas stations due to the shortage from Ukraine striking all these oil refineries. So this fuel crisis is spreading more and more inside of Russia, possibly going to affect Moscow here soon now with this oil pipeline being hit. So major disruption to fuel shortages in Russia. Now from next up. Russia's oil revenues have dropped by 30%. Putin is losing billions due to EU sanctions. These funds are no longer available to finance Russia's war machine, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas told Die Welt. Sanctions against Russia's shadow fleet cut oil transport revenues through the Baltic and Black Seas by 30% in just 1 week. Kallas added that if the U.S. joined the EU in imposing new measures, the pressure on Putin would grow and it would be much harder for Moscow to bypass sanctions and to fund the war against Ukraine. So that's Kaja Kallas here, the vice president of the European Commission, coming out and politely, seems like, calling on the U.S. to say, hey, please get involved in these sanctions. Help us out. The EU is sanctioning Russia hard, but we need the U.S. support as well to really put pressure onto Russia. You can see how these sanctions are damaging Russia's oil exports. But not only that, think about Ukraine as well. Ukraine's sanctions on Russian oil refineries using drones and destroying them, that's another major tool that's affecting a lot of exports for Russia. And in the end, they're losing billions and billions of dollars with all these destructions to these oil refineries and whatnot. So there's just a report today coming out from Kaja Kallas. Now, from Liskovka, Russia will not agree to the deployment of NATO troops in Ukraine. Kremlin spokesman Peskov has reiterated. According to him, the deployment of NATO military infrastructure in Ukraine was one of the root causes of the conflict. Trump recently said that the potential deployment of NATO troops would not be a problem for Putin. So isn't that crazy? Like, how come, I'm not sure why this is not loading, guys, sorry. But how come we see, one thing coming out from Trump? Well, Trump will say things like, oh, it's fine, NATO troops can be on the ground in Ukraine, but then we hear from the Kremlin spokesman, that's not okay. I mean, I prefer to go off of what the Kremlin is actually saying versus what Trump is saying, because at the end of the day, it's Putin's decision on what he wants and doesn't want to end this war, right? So Putin has said many times, Kremlin spokesman said many times that they don't want Western troops in Ukraine. We are very clear on what Russia is demanding, okay? And a lot of these demands, obviously, we know Ukraine is not going to agree to, but in terms of NATO troops in Ukraine, we've heard many times that the Kremlin states they don't want NATO troops on the ground in Ukraine. So I'm not sure why Trump would be saying that. Maybe he got some sort of mixed signal from Putin thinking it was okay. Who really knows? But the Kremlin coming out today and confirming they will not agree to the deployment of NATO troops in Ukraine. Now, from next, Peskov said the Kremlin cannot yet name exact dates for a new round of talks. The Kremlin spokesman also added that contacts at a high or top level must be well prepared in order to achieve results. So we've heard this numerous times as well from the Kremlin. They keep saying that over and over, that there's lots of preparations that need to be done prior to Putin and Zelensky meeting. One of the big ones they keep saying is they don't want Zelensky in power. They want a different president, as they call him illegitimate, while at the same time, Vladimir Putin's been president in Russia for over 25 years. And even, Sergei Lavrov, he's been in there for like close to 20 years, I think. So, lots of top Kremlin officials, they've been in power forever, yet Zelensky's only been in power in Ukraine for about 6 years or so, right? So that's a huge problem for Russia. They're claiming that Zelensky is not the legitimate president, that if they start signing documents, they don't consider him the president of Ukraine. So how will these documents be legitimately signed? So that's kind of what the Kremlin is stating once again, and I think they're doing this to further delay talks between Ukraine and Russia, so that way they can continue this invasion into Ukraine. Now let's move on to NOAA reports. During the night of August 27th, Russia launched 95 Shahed drones and decoys from multiple directions, including Kursk, Milarova, Orel, and occupied Crimea. Ukrainian air defense, electronic warfare units, and mobile groups managed to shoot down or suppress 74 of them. 21 drones hit targets across 9 locations. Okay, so a good majority shot down, 74 out of 95. A little bit lower numbers than what we usually see. We usually see closer to like a 80, 85, 90% success rate. So about 21 of these or so hitting their targets inside of Ukraine, which we did report that there was some explosions in like Poltava, Sumy, Kherson regions today with some of these drones. So 95 in total going into Ukraine. Now our final updates here from the Kyiv Independent. These are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of August 27th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And here's our final update of the day. Russia's losses as of August 27th, 920 troops, 118 vehicles and fuel tanks, 1 tank, 45 artillery systems, 194 UAVs, and 1 anti-aircraft warfare system. Okay, so always good news to hear whenever we hear of a air defense system being destroyed. These things are very expensive, so that's another major hit to Russia's military. 45 artillery systems up a little bit more today. We usually see about 20, 30 there. Tanks and AFVs, almost nothing. Okay, only 1 tank and no AFVs today. Vehicles and fuel tanks, about average number. Same with troop losses. We usually see right about 900 pretty much every single day for weeks now. So crazy news today, guys. I'm going to continue to follow this story regarding this pipeline in the Ryazan and Moscow regions of Russia. And if we get an update on that, I'll give you guys more details. But as far as we know, what we're hearing for right now, it's shut down for an indefinite period until they get these repairs done. So could we start seeing a major fuel shortage inside of Moscow, which is going to create massive panic as there's a lot of people living over there? So I want to thank you guys very much for tuning in for this update. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.